What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright. So, shout out to Town Biz for doing a video talking about Charles Barkley and his obvious disdain that he holds toward Kevin Durant. Now, I know sometimes I get accused by my detractors of being like biased and that I can't go in on players that I like, and I'm always trying to sugarcoat stuff. That's not the case. Look, Charles Barkley was my second favorite player in the 1990s behind Michael Jordan. My second favorite player. But that does not mean that I will absolve him of guilt or absolve him of wrongdoing, the things that he is doing, or like I don't remember things that he didn't get accomplished. Okay? Now look, it's obvious that Charles Barkley has an issue with KD, right? And one of the things he accuses KD of is being sensitive, right? Saying he's Mr. Sensitive, and every time someone criticizes him, he has something to say, and he can't take criticism and all that, right? But this is the same guy, Charles Barkley, who admitted that when Moses Malone first told him why he was struggling in the NBA, why he wasn't getting a lot of minutes, it wasn't because Billy Cunningham didn't like you. Moses Malone told him it's because you fat and lazy. That's why you're struggling. What did Charles Barkley do? Mr. Tough Guy? He went home and cried. Now, kudos to him for working with Moses Malone, being under tutelage of Moses Malone, losing the 50 pounds that he needed to lose to become a great player. But at the end of the day, these are some of the facts about Charles Barkley. This is a man that was cuckolded by a group of women to beat up on someone less than half his size. The guy was maybe 5'3", 120 pounds, drunk at this bar. Barkley at the time was 6'6", 265. And, you beat up on this dude to impress some women. It's the same guy that was so sensitive to criticism that he spat on a little girl. It's the same guy during an All-Star break said, and I quote, Mr. Conservative, Mr. I'm a Republican, Mr. Black people make too many excuses. This is why I hate white people. Remember he said that? I think it was during an All-Star break, and the press, and the pre-All-Star game press conferences that they give. Remember? I think it was in '95 when he said that. A lot of controversy. If we had social media, it would have stuck around a little bit longer. So Charles Barkley has a long history of crying about things in the media, crying about criticism. There's other things that I've probably forgotten about over time that have occurred with Charles Barkley. This guy's gotten into fights, brawls, got into was it Milwaukee, where he got into a fight in the snow and beat up two or three dudes with his shirt off or some shit, mug shots all over the internet. But he has the nerve to critique other players about their behaviors. Now, I get it. He's older. He's 60 years old. He's not the same guy that he was. People change. I understand all of that. But you also have to realize that when you have the history that Charles Barkley have, it kind of limits to some of the shit you can say. Sometimes you got to remember, hey, I've done this in the past. Where the fuck do I get off having the balls telling this guy this, that, and the other? Now, the thing about the bus driver thing, let's look at Charles Barkley's career here. And mind you, this is coming from a Charles Barkley fan. So I have the ability to critique players that I like. Even if it's Russ, even if it's Giannis. I can critique these guys. Giannis does dumb shit. Sometimes we go up against marquee matchups. He gets too excited, want to be Mr. MVP, play your motherfucking game. Giannis, you dumbass, go out there and play like how you normally play. Get other people involved. And then the second half, when other people got involved, they can't just focus on you because Grayson Allen is cooking. Because, Chris Middleton's hitting some shots. Drew Holiday is cooking. So they can't just double and triple team you because they fearing everybody else. Then all of a sudden, the second half, Giannis, things are much easier for you. Driving to the basket, then you can open up, expand your game, start hitting little jumpers, and hey, the Bucks up 10, 15 with 3 minutes to go. Oh, who cares if we shoot a couple threes? Maybe some will go in. But don't start the game off like that. You 28% three-point shooter, you. And Russ, sometimes you do turn the ball over too fucking much. Sometimes you do try to do too much. Sometimes you aren't thinking to move 100 miles an hour. But back to Barkley. You get drafted in 84. Let's not forget, the Sixers were just 1 year removed from a championship. Now I get it. Andrew Toney started having foot problems. Moses Malone was transitioning from being an MVP caliber player to being a all-star level player, but not quite the force he was. By that I mean Houston Rockets Malone, first year Philly Malone. He was a guy that could average 25 to 30 points a game, 14 to 17 rebounds per game. But Malone was slowing down by 85, 86. He was slowing down. The Sixers made the mistake of trading him thinking that he was on a steep decline, whereas in the next 5 years, he would still be a guy averaging 20 and 11. But anyway, they were slowing down. Dr. J, Bobby Jones, Moses to a certain extent. They were all slowing down. Maurice Cheeks was still sort of in his prime, but Barkley was supposed to be that piece, in my opinion. Had he been in shape, he could have extended that championship run maybe 2 more years. Maybe. Or at least got into another finals. But he was out of shape. Coming in 300 pounds, not wanting to play in Philly, not wanting to deal with the pressure. And then, when Moses gets traded, and Bobby Jones retires, Andrew Toney retires because of the foot problems, Dr. J retires, what happens? Charles Barkley is the unquestioned bus driver of that team. And he's a phenomenal player. 25 and 11, 27 and 13, 28 and 12, 6 assists, 5 assists. Extraordinary efficiency from the floor. Tremendous. Some years he's the 3rd best player in the NBA. Some years he's the 2nd best player in the NBA. He thinks he's the best player in the NBA. I just ain't got no help. One year he somehow led that Sixers team to 53 wins. Lost the MVP award to Magic. Some people, including myself, think Barkley should have gotten it. But Barkley could not lead that team consistently to playoff runs. Now I get it, he didn't have the best team around him. But generally speaking, Michael Jordan didn't either, outside of Scottie Pippen. I mean, when you look at talent for talent, look at Portland in 92. And look at the Bulls in 92. And you tell me outside of outside of Jordan and Drexler, who had the better team? Portland had Drexler. Drexler, Terry Porter, Jerome Kersey. They had, what's the guy name with the headband? Cliff Robinson. Kevin Duckworth, who was better than any center the Bulls had at that time, even though he was derided because of how deep the center position was. You know what I'm saying? They had a deep team. But Barkley couldn't get anything done. Then he goes to Phoenix. I thought Barkley was going to win a championship with that Phoenix Suns team. They didn't get it done. Then the next year, they get upset about Houston. And then the next year, they get upset about Houston again. Then he goes to Houston 2 years later, when both teams were sort of rebuilding. They started off the season 21-2. They had the best record in the NBA. Great basketball. But they faltered a little bit, but still made it to the Western Conference Finals. But John Stockton ended that shit in Game 6 of '97 Western Conference Final. Now, Barkley was individually great, having some throwback performances all the way up until, he fucked his knee up, which ended his career in '99 into 2000. But Barkley never got it done as far as winning a championship. He never got it done. And like I said before, some of this hate could be because KD is in Phoenix and Barkley, for whatever reason, he's grown to dislike Kevin Durant. He doesn't really want him to win a championship there because that's going to say something about Charles Barkley. If KD can take this team, which position by position is not nearly as talented as that '93 team that Barkley led, if he can take them to a finals and win it, I don't think he's going to do it. But if he can do it, do you know what they'll say about KD? Let's look at this '93 Suns team right quick. Let's just look at this team. Now, this is the old NBA, right? When I say the old NBA, the scoring was the pace was starting to go down a little bit, but they averaged 113.4. That was number one in the NBA at the time. Highest offensive rating in the NBA. Defensive rating was top 10 in the NBA. All right? They won 62 games that year. That team, number one in three-pointers made and attempted, number 3 in three-point percentage, number 1 in two-point percentage, number 1 in free throws made, number 2 in attempted, number 1 in scoring. Charles Barkley was the MVP. 25.6 points per game, 12.2 rebounds per game, 5.1 assists, 1.6 steals, 1 block per game, 52% shooting from the floor. He started having an emerging three-point shot, 31%, which for the era that he played in would be like a guy shooting 34, 35% now. Not too bad. 76.5% from the free throw line, right? Kevin Johnson, who would be a Hall of Famer if it wasn't for the injuries and the incident that occurred when he was mayor in Sacramento. If it wasn't for those things, he would be in the Hall of Fame. I think Kevin Johnson was the best point guard in the NBA between 92 and 95. That's just my opinion. 16.1 points per game, 2.1 rebounds, 7.8 assists, 1.7 steals, 50% shooting from the floor, 82% from the line. Then they had Richard Dumas. Richard Dumas was having comparisons to Scottie Pippen at that time. He was a young, brash rookie, playing 27 minutes a game, but averaging 16. The guy had like I'm telling you, they were comparing him to Scottie Pippen. Athletic, but he eventually succumbed to a drug problem. Then they had the savvy veteran Danny Ainge playing for them, 46% shooting from the floor, 40% from three-point range, 85% from the line, 12 points a game. Tom Chambers coming off the bench, playing 23 minutes a game. Not the player that he was in Seattle and just a couple years earlier in Phoenix, but just 3 years earlier in Phoenix, he was averaging 27 points a game. This year he was averaging 12. Sergio Ceballos, who could score in a heartbeat with the best of them. Sergio Ceballos averaging 13 points a game that year. I believe that year he led the NBA in field goal percentage, 57.6%. And Sergio Ceballos, when he got it going, could score with the best of them, had a 50-point game, I think, against the Chicago Bulls. Mark West, a great interior scorer, 61% shooting from the floor, which is like 80-some% today. Dan Marley, a perennial six-man of the year player. Thunder Dan, one of the first players to shoot from range from outside, 17 points a game, 46% shooting from the floor, 38% from three-point range. And they also had Nigel Knight, Frank Johnson, Kurt Rambis. And the head coach that year was the late, great Paul Westphal, who was a great shooting guard in the 1970s. And, a really good coach. Not a top-tier Hall of Fame coach, but he was a good coach. And like I said, Charles Barkley should have won some championships, man. He should have won some championships. And then in 95, right, let me go to the 95 team. I just want to make a point about this. 94, they won 56 games. 95, they went 59-23. Second in scoring that year. They averaged 110.6. That year, Charles Barkley averaged 23 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists. They had Dan Marley still. They had acquired A.C. Green, the Iron Man, that year. They had Danny Manning, although I believe he was hurt during the playoffs. But Danny Manning was averaging 18 points a game for them. All right. Kevin Johnson, he was hurt that year. They had Elliot Perry by then, shooting 41%, 42% from three. They had Wesley Person, shooting 44% from three that year. Wayman Tisdale was on the team. Danny Ainge was still there. I think it was his last year in the NBA. Joe Klein. Danny Shades was coming to the bench, the son of Dolph Shades. Danny Shades played like 18 years in the NBA. Richard Dumas was still there, but he was falling off as a player because of drugs and things of that nature. So what I'm basically getting at, man, Barkley played on some great teams, man, but, he didn't get it done. And some of the times it was because of him. Sometimes it was because of him. Sometimes Charles Barkley was great in closeout games, but then sometimes in some pivotal games, Charles Barkley came up short. But anyway, that's what I got to say about this one. Tell me what you guys think.